Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Chatting with Chichi show. I am so excited, as usual, to have all of you on board with me tonight on the Chatting with Chichi show. And this is episode 58. I'm like, wow, how did that happen? But it's episode 58, and I'm excited, as usual, to come on live and share with you different things, really. Today's episode is quite vital for parents of tweens and teens. As you guys know, I like to talk to parents of tweens and teens. We're going to be talking about criticism. And bear with me because sometimes when I pronounce that word, it's always funny. It's always doing a bit funny in my mouth when I say that word. But I'm going to say it more and more. And I just need to kind of get the hang of it, get out of my comfort zone of trying to hide away from that word and just go with it. Thank you guys for joining me today. We're going to be talking about the effects of constant criticisms on our children. And the reason that I'm sharing this is that I have there's a quote. Hey, Bissy, how you doing? Bissy, I need to call you later. But thank you for joining in. Thank you for joining in. The reason that I'm actually sharing on this topic is because I had written a quote some time ago that constant criticism actually is one of the reasons, to be honest, why we have a lot of adults who didn't really dare to go for their dreams. And it's one of those topic areas that I know that many adults suffered with as kids. We were criticized a lot as kids. And it's something that we kind of do now to our own children without even realizing. And I think it's important that we talk about it. Hi, Instagram as well. I'm on live Instagram as well. So I'm doing both. But I felt it was very important that we talk about this. We share this. And the reason that we're sharing this, guys, is just so that we're more conscious when we're talking to our tweens and teens. I'm not here to tell you that you're never going to tell your tweens and teens off, but it's that criticism, it's that judging them, it's that making them feel inferior. It is the way we actually come about doing it that is really key in what we're sharing. So thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate each and every one of you. I'm going to take off the background music for now so that we can get into the show. This is episode 58 of the Chatting with Chichi show, and we're going to be talking about the effects of constant criticisms on our tweens and teens. The reason I've said constant is because it's the constant effect, it's the constant criticism that is okay. We're going to just look at it. I think I asked a few questions and we're going to kind of look at it. But thank you guys so much for joining. And can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Thank you very much. I can see all of you that have joined. Thank you so much for that. I asked a few questions. I think that my first bit was that constant criticisms is actually one of the main reasons why there's a big communication gap between parents and their tweens and teens. When I say, I'm going to now be calling it just teens. When I say teens, know that I'm referring to preteens and teens as well. And it could even be with children as well. I don't think it's just only to our teens and it's just for children as well as a whole thing. Constant criticisms are actually one of the main reasons why there's that constant gap. When you talk to teens today, and they tell you, well, they don't really communicate that well, or they don't really tell their parents a lot of things that goes on, and you ask them, what is the reason why? What's the reason behind that? A lot of times it comes down to the constant criticism, the constant nagging. It comes down to those reasons. And so we just want to talk about it. And okay, yes, I'm coming to Ifeanyi's definition. Yes, so it's one of those reasons, and so I want us to kind of talk about it because for me, I always believe that a lot of things that our teens go through these days, they always happen in that gap, that communication gap where they're not really talking that much or really sharing that much with their parents. Some parents think that yes, they're sharing with them, but they're probably not even sharing half of what they really need to share. So it's important that we look at this, and if you can share this video to other parents that you know that it will be beneficial for them, please do share the video. I really do appreciate it. I better behave myself as well. I better behave myself as well on here. But that's kind of the gist with what we're going to chat about today. And we will not, I won't take your time. I will just make sure that we keep to time and we kind of look at really what it's all about. So there were three questions I had actually when I talked about this. Is okay, first of all, do they work? Do constant criticisms, do they actually work? And if they work, share with us how they work. I think that's the first question that I want us to dive into. The constant. Hi Nancy, how you doing? Good. Good. Thanks for joining in. Ifeanyi, I can see you as well. Evelyn as well, I can see you guys. Thank you so much. And Funke as well. Bissy, thank you so much, guys, for joining. So I think the first question is, does it really work? When we constantly criticize our kids, does that actually really work? And if it does work, let us know how it does, because I want to know that before we actually dive into the other bits that I'm talking about, the effects of it, and actually how we can turn it around. What are the alternatives? I think that's the key. What are the alternatives if they don't work? What are the alternatives? Because if they don't work, then we need to know what actually works. What are the alternatives? And is it the same way that you speak and you criticize your younger children that you're going to criticize your older teens? Because I'll be honest with you, communication changes as they grow up. You're not going to communicate the same way you did when they were younger kids to when they're older kids. They grow up, they're thinking differently, they're responding differently. So of course, as a parent, we need to also change in the way that we communicate with them. A lot of parents don't, and it causes more and more issues in the house. It causes more and more backchats. It causes more and more arguments. So it's important that we realize that we change as our teenagers and as our children grow up as well, that we change. So that's kind of the gist about it. But what does constant criticisms do? And I say this from a viewpoint, to be honest, of someone who, yes, growing up, I had an auntie that lived with us who really definitely constantly criticized. And I used to just always, even as a kid, I used to always think, but why? Is there nothing positive here to talk about? So for me, growing up, I was really conscious about the way I speak to people, because I didn't like it when people criticized and just, I'm not telling you don't correct. And I think that's one thing I really want to talk about here. I'm not saying don't correct your kids. But when it comes to constantly criticizing them, there are definitely very many detrimental effects. Actually, many adults that that are here today are still living from the scars of being or have been constantly criticized when they were growing up. It's really true. I really and don't you guys give me your own opinions as well to that. Many adults today are not as they they're not going for those great opportunities that are out there because they're not really feeling that good enough. They've heard a lot of those criticisms, those constant telling offs, those constant putting you down, you lazy, you're dumb, and all those kind of words that people had heard growing up. It affects them in their adulthood. And that's why I want us to be very conscious of what we are actually discussing, what we're actually telling our children. Words are very powerful. That's one big thing that I always talk about. Words are very powerful. What are you telling your children? If you're constantly telling your children, oh, you're so lazy, guess what? They're not going to disappoint you. They're not going to disappoint you. They won't disappoint you and they won't disappoint themselves because they believe what you tell them. Our children believe what you tell them. So when you tell them that they're lazy, that's all they're going to do. They're going to be lazy. They're going to do those things that you're calling them. You say you're lazy, you're dumb, that's what they're going to do. You don't listen, they're not going to listen. So rather than say those kind of words, why don't you say more motivating words? Why don't you say more words to actually lift them up? It's different from actually correcting them. And that's the whole gist here is that I'm not saying don't correct your children. That's one thing I don't want us to get confused with. I am not saying do not correct your children. When your children do wrong, you correct them, but it's the way you correct them that matters. It's the way you correct them that matters. You guys also please remember that this chatting that not just me talking, it's all of us chatting about it. So please tell me what you think. Does constant criticism work? Let me know. I'm very weird. I'm not very weird. My words, the way I pronounce it is when I pronounce the word criticisms, I'm always like, oh, criticisms, so bear with me in that pronunciation, but I need to get it. I need to get it together. So I'm gonna have to just use it instead of running away from it, let me step out of my comfort zone and tackle that. So if he says criticizing kids, let alone teens, will only damage your self-esteem. They're trying to build. Exactly. They're trying to build it, and constant criticisms can actually tear those down. Yeah, let me use my other phone to get the comments so that I don't lose the comments. If I explained what a criticism are to us, so that was quite great as well. I'm just going to go to that as well so that I can get the comments. So that I can get the comments as well. So yes, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that constant criticisms will actually work? Let me know if you think it works. And if it doesn't work, then let's look at ways to turn these let's look at ways to turn them around. I think that's key. Let's look at ways to actually turn them around. Good, good, good. I tend to call it constructive feedback. Okay, yes, yes. You can call it constructive feedback, but what are you in the feedback? What is the effect of that feedback? I think that's key, Evelyn. What is the effect of the key of the feedback? Because constructive means building up, isn't it? You're building them up. So if at the end of the conversation you have made them actually grow, you've actually built them up, you've actually taught them something, they've actually come out of it encouraged, more motivated to do right next time, then yes, it is constructive feedback. But when we tear them down, then it's not constructive feedback. So yes, I definitely get constructive feedback. Yeah, we've got to give them the feedback, because if we don't give them the feedback, then who else will? And so that's why I'm saying here that we're not talking about not correcting our children. All we're saying is do it in such a constructive way. I'll use that word that you've used, Evelyn. Is do it in a constructive way, not in a demeaning way, not in a throwing words out there way, not in a judgmental way, but do it in a constructive way, in a way that you know that they have learned something from it. It's something that they've built, something has happened. They have learned something from it, and they're going to go on this. Okay, so I will throw a question. How did the semester go? Okay, good. Let's get. I would like that. How did this semester go? Okay, good. And what would the answer be? Good. I hope. Which subject or teacher do you like? Did you like or enjoy? Okay, let me get my phone, because I think with my phone I can get the good. I can get the comments more. Yeah. Oh, but don't talk. Yeah. There's constructive and there's destructive criticism. Yes. Okay. Good. 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 Yes, I hear that. I hear that. Yes, exactly. Yes, I don't want this other thing to talk. There you go. Yeah, because I can get my comments faster here. That's it. Yes. Yes, there is constructive one and there is destructive one as well. But a lot of times we don't think about them being destructive at the time that we're talking. I think that's key. My experience is to let them start talking. They will listen better. Yes, exactly. Yep, let them start the talking. Exactly, Evelyn. I like that. Let them start the talking and they will listen better. And something else that I do as well, guys, is a lot of times I intentionally, I don't like to react immediately. I hold myself back in terms of reacting, because a lot of times when we don't hold ourselves back, we end up saying the wrong things. And it's important that when our children do something that is wrong, or when they do something that is wrong or even out of character, we've got to be intentional with the way we're actually going back to them afterwards. Because depending on how we go to them will depend on how they learn from that mistake. A lot of parents think that when they do the shouting, when they criticize harshly, when they do all that and the child changes there and then, and it actually works. But no, because yes, it can work for that day, but guess what? You will see yourself constantly having to remind them about it again and again, because the first time they didn't really get it. All they got was shouting. That's all they got. They got shouting, and so just to keep the shouting, just to make the shouting stop, they changed. But it's not a long-term change. And if we want a long-term change, then we have to make it very intentional. Hold back. Yes, I do that. I hold back. Sometimes I actually just keep quiet. I'm just watching. And they already know that something is wrong. They already know that something is wrong. And then I start to ask, would they say, oh, Mom, but I didn't, this is not what I meant. I said, tell me what you intended. Tell me what you meant. And that's the kind of way that I now get to do the talking. Because a lot of times, sometimes when you really hear what they have to say, they have a justifiable reason to sometimes to why they do things. But it's now left for us to be able to hear that and then correct that reason that they had. A lot of times they think, okay, you know what, they did the right thing by doing what they did. But we don't get to know that if we don't listen to them. And I think that's key for all of us as parents. Constant criticism. I'm going to give us the effects of constant criticism, and then we'll look at how we can turn them around. But yes, holding yourself back is one of the big reasons that I know that that helps with that, and also getting them to talk so that you get to listen to actually find out why did they do what they did, and then when they tell you the reason why they did it, you can now start correcting. But if you had looked at it this way, you could have reacted differently. If you had looked at it that way, you could have reacted differently. So get them to do the talking. A lot of times I think we are so tempted to do the talking. We're so tempted to talk and talk and talk and not actually get their reason behind why they did stuff. If we can get their reasons behind why they did stuff and correct those reasons, then we have a better chance of them having this long-term change that we desire as parents. Yeah, does that make sense? Good. So let's look at the effects of constant criticism. I think Kate, if he had already said it affects their, and it really does. It really does affect their self-esteem. We're in a in a generation now where a lot of teens don't feel good enough. A lot of teens don't feel that they are smart enough. A lot of young people don't feel that they're good enough, that they have what it takes to succeed. And really, to be honest, that's because they have gotten a lot of constant criticisms. They have. And it's not that they can't do it, but they've been told for a long time that they can't. And as I said at the beginning, our teenagers really, really do believe what we say. Okay? And our younger daughter told the dad, "You act as if you know it all." Yep. Oh yes, and they can say that. They can say that because that's the way they feel, and they feel okay. You think you know it all. But yeah, tell us what the dad said to that. Tell us what the dad responded to that. Because I'm trying to imagine my Tamara also telling that to her dad as well. I know his reaction. He goes, "Oh, don't say that." But yes, it's really, really. So one of the other effects we talked about, low self-esteem. I feel that they won't also be comfortable. Actually, they'll be afraid to do wrong things. That's another thing because things can have also detrimental effects when they grow up, where they will be afraid to try new things. They will be afraid to apply for certain positions because they're afraid that they may get wrong. They're afraid that they may get rejected. They're afraid that anything wrong might happen, and so they won't actually have the guts to go out, have the audacity. They won't have the courage to do a lot of things that they know that they should do. So it really, really does affect them. We may think, well, that we are trying to correct them. We're trying to. How are we correcting them? Are we correcting them in the field of? Are we correcting them in a constructive way, or are we correcting them by tearing them down? I think when you tear kids down, when you tear teens down, you're actually causing more harm than actually the good that you actually intended for that. So thank you so much. I saw Amara, thank you so much for joining, and Action Jackson, thank you so much, and Mary Olga as well. Thank you guys so much. So we're just talking about the effects of constant criticism. That's where we are right now. And I did ask, does it actually work? And I'm sure a lot of our answers must be no, isn't it? Because I didn't see anyone that said it actually works. Constant criticism does not work. So you guys all agree with me on that. So that's great. So we're all on the same page with that. So that's fantastic. Good, good, good. So what were the effects that I talked about? I said, do you know what? And even Ian, when I say that it affects them both in childhood and as they even grow up. They grow up in their marriages. They become constant criticizers to their partners or vice versa. So it does affect. It affects relationships. It breaks down communication. You know, I will always talk about communication. Constant criticisms breaks down communications. Your teens will not go to you when they need to go to you. When things that matter, the things that matter that they really need to talk to you about, because you're constantly criticizing them anyway, they won't go to you for that. They will go to other people, and you would not want them to go to the wrong people. And that's the risk that we take when we constantly criticize our children. So it's important that we hold back. It's important that we look at the main, what is wrong? What is the situation? Calm down before you start to overreact. Our kids are going to make mistakes. I think that's one fact that we just need to accept. We made mistakes when we were growing up. So our kids will make mistakes, but it's how we respond to them that really does matter. What other points did I write down here for us? I said it actually leaves emotional scars. Um, you see a lot of angry adults today, and you think, oh, why are they so angry? Why do they easily get angry? Or why are they so cynical? Or why do they always criticize people and judge people? Why do they always do that? It's because of what they got when they were growing up. It all stems, most of the time, it stems from their experiences when they were growing up. And we don't want our children to grow up and be those kind of judgmental adults. We don't want our children to grow up and be those kind of adults who are constantly criticizing their partners, breaking up in relationships because they can't handle relationships, and not having that good communication skills because all they see in people are the negative things rather than seeing the positive things. So it's really, really important that as parents, we take responsibility in that arena. We take responsibility in that way. Yes, correct your child. As if I didn't say that in the earlier comments, correct your child, but it's the way that you correct your child that really, really does matter. Okay, so how can we turn it around? What are the ways that we can turn it around? And I think for us, especially when we're talking to our older kids, the teenagers, is where we get to a stage now where it's really about motivating them more than criticizing them. Because the more you criticize them, the more they'll say, okay, there she goes again, or there he goes again. And they won't really, they make what you're saying invalid. Your constant criticisms, it make what you're saying invalid. Even though what you're saying may have a good point, what you're saying is the right thing to say. But because of the way you're saying it, it invalidates it. They don't look at it as something serious. They just say, well, I don't know what she's talking about, and they just take it from there. So it's important we know, we are conscious. I think that's the word. Aware. You have to be aware of how you are actually correcting them. I think that's key. Because if you're aware of it, then you'll go for it, isn't it? Yes? Okay, fantastic. So I've said that motivation rather than criticism. I think you've got to learn how to motivate them more. Um, I was talking to my sister the other day, and I was saying how these days I'm turning my conversations around to where I am, especially to my teens. I'm talking more of their future. So when I'm correcting them and stuff, I'm reminding them of their future and then walking backwards. You get what I mean? So rather than saying, oh, why are you doing this? Oh, why can't you do this? Why don't you do that? Oh, rather than saying that, I'm reminding them of that future that we talked about. We've done goal setting. We've talked about our goals. Those are the goals they want to get. How are you going to get those goals? Are these attitudes going to lead you to those goals? And that's what I'm communicating with them now, to their future and working backwards. If you're going to get to where you want to get to, are these going to be the right things, Dan? Are these going to be the right things to lead you there? So it's motivate rather than criticize. Yes, especially for our teenagers, guys, especially for our teenagers. They've gotten to the age where they really, really know what is right and wrong. So it's a case of motivating them rather than criticizing them. Okay. Number two that I've got here, guys, is validation. I think there's a big gap between the validation arena. We've got to validate because a lot of times, as I said at the beginning, a lot of times when our teams do stuff, they have a reason why they do it. So yes, I understand why you did this, but this is the way to do it next time. This is the way that works better because that. You give them the reasons. So you understand why they're saying what they're saying. You understand why they think they did what they said, or why you think they did what they did, but this is the correct way. This is the right way. This is the way that works better. This is the way that will give you better opportunities. That's the way we communicate with them. You validate what it because you've heard their reasons. They had a reason why they did it. You validate that reason, and then you still go ahead and do your correction. So validation is very, very important. And then also, I think also describing the situation is very important rather than just fixing the blame immediately. So a lot of times we're tempted to just blame. Oh, you did this. Yes, I know because you've done it before. Oh, yes, yes, you did that. Don't, rather than do that, describe the situation. Talk about the situation. Why did this happen? Ask questions. As Evelyn, actually, you gave us those points as well. Ask the questions. When you ask the questions, you get the answers, you get the feedback that you need to be able to now do the corrections. These are mostly for a lot of teens. Is kind of these reasons I'm giving are a lot. Sometimes another point I've got here is sometimes just be quiet. I do that. Sometimes just keep quiet, and they come back to you to now explain why they did what they did. Because your silence is not as if you're ignoring what they said, or you can't be bothered about it, or you can't be bothered to talk about it. Your silence is a sign that there's something more that needs to be talked about. So sometimes keeping quiet in that moment is really key and very, very effective, because you're still going to go back. They're still going to come back to the topic. But in your silence, what you have done is you have calmed down. In your silence, what you have done is that you have become more intentional. In your silence, what you have done is you become more aware. You're now looking at the situation and you're going to judge the situation in a better way, in a way with a more clarified mind. You're not just the situation is not just all in your head and then you're now just pouring out things. So it's important that sometimes you've got to keep quiet, be silent about it. And I've got here that you have to be free to express yourself. So as I said before, we're not saying don't correct. If you're going to leave, like say you're going to leave now in 10 minutes, guys, I'm leaving in 10 minutes. Everybody needs to be ready by in 10 minutes. Be clear, express yourself. You're the parents. We're not running a home where we are afraid of our teens. No way. We're not running a home where we're afraid of our teens. But what we need to do is have clarity. We need to be clear. We're going to leave at a certain time. Tell them this is the time I am going to leave the house. So rather than shouting, oh, who has not finished in the bathroom? Oh, have you brushed? Oh, have you done? You just stress yourself out for no reason. Tell them this is the time we're going to leave. Everybody needs to be ready at that time. And you just get on with your own business. To be honest, it's less stressful, and you're less stressed about it. And everyone's doing exactly what they need to do. Now, if they don't, you might have to live without them. So, but at least they know that your time is your time. Okay, good. I think those are all the reasons that I had here. Motivate rather than criticize, validate, describe the situation. Sometimes you just need to say nothing. That's one of my favorite ones. That works for me. And then be free to express yourself. Don't be afraid to talk to your teens at all. Never be afraid to talk to your teens. And I think actually that should have been my number one point, was think before you talk. Just really think about what you're about to say before you actually go ahead and say it. So those are my points in terms of turning those criticisms around. As parents, it is our duty to correct our children. And I would never hide away from that. And I would never encourage parents not to correct their children. But the key is in how we do the correction. Are we correcting them in a destructive way, or are we correcting them in a constructive way? Are you correcting them by comparing them to others? That's a big no-no. Even if it's comparing them to their siblings, that is a big no-no. So it all depends on how we're correcting them. If you're constructive about your corrections, if you're motivational about your correction, if you're building them up in your corrections, then you're winning the game. You're winning the battle. You're winning the results. You're going to get the results that you want. So everything depends on your choice. What are you doing? Are you constructive or are you destructive? A lot of times, none of us are intentionally destructive, but if we're not aware of what we're doing, then we can be destructive in our correction. So it's important that we're very, very aware of what we're doing when we do things. That's why, to be honest, the number one point should really be think before you actually talk. Think before you actually correct. Because when you get time to think about it, then you're more constructive. That's the word, yeah? You're more constructive and you're more intentional about it as well. So it's really, really key. Okay, very, very good. I think that's kind of, yes, that's our time is kind of wrapped up already. And that's really what I really wanted to talk about. Because for me, if we are going to step into this week, pressing the reset button, starting over again, our kids are going back to school. Many of our kids have started, and now most of them will be already settled in school this week. If we're going to have that stress-free term or stress-free school year that we desire as parents, then we've got to learn how to be very, very aware of the way we correct our kids so that we're less stressed and so that everybody gets along. The routines are in place, the communications that are out there, and our kids are going to school, coming back, and we're having the right communication and relationship with our teams. It's really, really important because when we break down in our communication and in our relationships with our teams, it affects us as individuals. It affects us in our work. It affects us in our production. It affects us in our relationships with our spouses as well. So these are all kind of things that the ripple effect, they definitely affect to all these. It's important that we become more aware of how we are criticizing our children. And let's be more constructive rather than destructive. Let's be more aware. Those things that we didn't like as we were growing up, let's be aware of it and turn it around. Motivate rather than criticize. Validate them. Express yourself. Don't be afraid to correct them. Don't be afraid to correct them, but just talk to them in a more mature way because they're all growing as well. So talk to them in a more mature way. Thank you so much, Instagram as well. I know I was looking more on my laptop, but I had you in mind as well. So thank you so much for joining in as well. You guys, as you step into the week, keep your head up, make your week count as always, and always do the right thing. I think it's important that because as we do the right thing, our children as well are joining us to do the right thing. I wish you guys a fantastic week. Remember that I'm rooting for you all the way. Love you guys. And thank you so, so much for joining me on this week's Chatting with Chichi show. For you guys that have joined me live and for everyone else that is going to watch the replay, I want to say thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. And I will talk to you later. Take care, guys. Have a beautiful, beautiful week. And I really, really appreciate all of you that have tuned in. Thank you. Bye, guys. See you later.